Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Hmm.
For the people I know, for the people I don't know, we're just going to be joined in a minute with producer Robyn Laliberte, or La Liberty, if you're of that non-French speaking persuasion. Apparently, half her family is not the kind of people that will actually pronounce it that way. So I think it's up to you. And our other panelist is the amazing Susan Curran, who is marketing genius and packaging guru and all-around wonderful maven. Also has a new porch, which she is showing off to everybody.
Yeah.
My name is Jen Frankel. I'm hosting this panel, and I am also in the process of doing what I consider to be one of the hardest things that you possibly can do, which is get a bunch of people together to do one thing. Um, People are not as bad as cats, but at the same time, I think if you've ever made a film yourself, or if you've just even read the credits of a film, you know that there are an obscene number of people working on a movie, and they're all necessary. There are so many different people that have to come together to put something onto screen. So it's probably not that surprising that oh uh, I guess somebody. Sorry. Susan, could I make you the host? Is there any chance you'd be able to figure out how to get Robyn in?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm going to actually enable the waiting room just so that maybe there's a chance that I can actually get her in. That's funny. I just have a feeling that it's like when everybody's in the wrong meeting on Facebook, and you have no idea how to get everybody together. Um, uh, okay. Um, Susan, I'm going to switch the meeting control over to you just to see if there's a chance that we can get you to get her in.
I am now.
You're the host. Enjoy the power. It shall not last long. Um, I've heard a great panel earlier today on talking about Picard and the showrunner of Picard, and the way that movies differ in very many seminal ways from doing a television show, for example. And that differs, again, from doing a short film, and so on and so on. No matter what you're talking about in terms of getting something from the words on the page onto the screen, it can be a very different process. And I think that the thing I've learned most about the process we've been going through is that every single time you do it, it's going to be different. And you can take a lot of lessons from your previous experiences. But at the same time, there are going to be things that you just have to make up as you go along. And if you're not the kind of person who likes reacting to an ever-changing situation and ever-increasing problems, and who doesn't like putting out fires, let me just suggest that probably making films is not what you want to be doing with your life. The project that I'm working on with my wonderful producer, Robyn, who hopefully will get into the room at some point, and my beautiful friend, Susan, who is just the most incredible resource for everything to do with every stage film. I'm putting a lot on her, but she deserves it. Um, so a bunch of years ago, 2012 actually, I got an idea for a web series were just kind of taking off. We didn't really know if they were going to be viable. We didn't know if you were going to be able to make money doing a web series. We didn't know if anybody was going to fund web series. In Canada, actually, the Actors Union got out ahead of it and made it very expensive to hire actors for web series. So we immediately saw that that it was going to be something where we had to do we had to use non-union actors. We had to shoot really fast and as cheap as possible, because we didn't know if there was going to be any remuneration in it. To that end, we actually managed to shoot we managed to shoot a trailer, I guess, for the web series, which was basically one block of the web series. I wrote 12 episodes of it, and like basically we shot one of them to try to give proof of concept so that we could get more people on board. We got a bunch of people who were really excited about the idea. So, and then our main actress went union. And all of a sudden we were in a position where we couldn't afford to work with her. And we also couldn't afford to hire all other union actors so that they could work with her too. So the project got shelved a little bit. Then I met a producer who got interested in producing the web series himself, so awesome. And I gave him the 12 episodes that I'd written, and we did some fiddling, and then he said, well, let's just do an hour of television. It's not that popular in Canada, but other places in the world, Europe, you can have like a one-off hour of television and you can sell that, and then we can maybe work on getting a feature made or a TV series made, or actually get like more response for the web series. And then he said, well, let's just do a feature because it's not going to cost that much more. And that was the point when I realized I didn't have an ending, because I'd never thought about making an ending. So I started writing the novel, and I finished the novel, did a self-publishing thing, eventually got a book contract for it. We became a #1 bestseller on Amazon in 3 different categories, including pushing Julian Fellows, is that right? The guy who does Downton Abbey? We actually pushed him off the #1 spot for television adaptations, which I don't really know how we did that. But it was short-lived, very short-lived, but at least now we can say it was an Amazon bestseller. And then I started writing the screenplay. I'd had the great fortune to meet the absolutely legendary, iconic director of, we're not supposed to push the fact that he did the original My Bloody Valentine because he's done so much since, but you might know him best from that, George Mahalka. And I met him and Susan at the Female Eye Film Festival in Toronto. And at that point, I ended up building a relationship with them over the next few years. And George said he would be the executive producer for Undead Redhead. Which takes us to Susan. Susan, would you give the hosting duties back to me, and I'll try to get Robyn in? And would you mind just talking for a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, but first you have to tell me how to give them back.
Oh, okay. Just go to where your picture is on, and
Okay.
if you hover over your picture, there's 3 little dots.
Is there now?
In if there's like a place where you've got a thumbnail of yourself.
Yeah. So I just touch it?
Yeah, just click the 3 dots. And
There's
there
no
should be something.
There's no 3 dots. Okay,
okay, or go to participant.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
Sorry about this. We love
we
this. Do you see some way to change?
I just see that I'm the host.
Okay.
Make host. There we go.
Oh, excellent. Okay, we're sorry about this. It's a wonderful new brave technical word. Thank you. Okay, I'm putting it over to the amazing Susan Curran.
Now I'm a technical whiz too. So yeah, like Jen said, we met a few years ago at the Female Eye Film Festival. I try really hard to be supportive with both female filmmakers, producers, directors, cast, crew, stories, everything. And I always meet fabulous people while I'm there. And George and I just fell in love with the title Undead Redhead. I mean, we were sold at that at the time. So that's how it started. And yeah, I mean, the story, I hate to be so crass, but it checks all the right boxes right now. It's inclusive. It's, it's the gentler side of horror, so everybody can see it. It doesn't, it's not going to ruffle anybody's feathers. It's just a cute love story about somebody coming of age and becoming a zombie all at the same time. Not being a teen though, that coming of age when you're in your late 20s and you're still trying to figure stuff out. So I think the story itself is universal. So that's my thought on Undead Redhead.
So can you talk a little bit about what your experience is, especially the parts of the experience that are outside of film itself? Because you come from a background in in other kinds of packaging and marketing, like for music, right?
Right. I started at a record company in my 20s. It was a dream job. I would have done it for free. They didn't have to pay me. It was way too much fun. But then I lost my 20s. A decade went by and I was just having way too much fun. And then, things started to change in the record business with, the downloading and the music swapping, and the industry just was not ahead of it. And I ended up, record companies were all buying each other, and they went from 8 major labels down to 4 major labels. So it was a tough time, and I happened to get hired by Sony to work on their home entertainment division, and I was doing Zaboomafoo and Caillou, and then I was lucky enough to work on Manga and Palm Pictures. So we got to release, and Shout Factory, which was awesome. So we got to release Freaks and Geeks and SCTV, and all of a sudden, these DVD packages were selling more than some of the records that we were releasing. So it was a really exciting time. And then I just went from there to Anchor Bay, a mini studio, and the rest is history.
So with your experience, you've worked at a lot of different stages of the development of films. Everything from the initial concept to figuring out how to actually make it something that people want to fund. I really talk to a lot of writers who are in the stage where they have an idea or even they have a script, but the bridging the gap between having the script and getting it onto the screen, that's really the big deal. That's really where there's really no one who can help you. You can help you navigate that without actually you figuring it out yourself.
Well, it is getting better. I mean, between Women in Directors Chair and Telefilm, they've all, and Ontario Creates, they all have a very big open door policy. They're all very big on, come and ask our questions and we will try to help point you in the right direction. But unless you know that, then yes, you're kind of, up against it.
And that's, of course, the Canadian system. We have a lot of Americans on, and with Americans, you actually have a completely different way. In Canada, the only game in town for funding is basically the government, and the government money comes from a bunch of different sources, which you can access going through various government organizations and through various broadcasters. There's something called the magic envelope, which is based on the performance of a broadcaster in the previous years. Does this go to producers as well?
It goes to producers as well. Okay. They get an envelope as well. But I mean, okay, so, but even in the States, though, there are still a lot of festivals and markets and opportunities where higher level people who have the answers and the means will meet with you, because ideas might be a dime a dozen, but one that checks the boxes and is fully executable, you never know where you're going to find that. So a lot of the various producers and studios, they go to these markets and they volunteer their time to sit on panels like this, or read scripts, run script contests. Highly recommend getting involved in as many of those as you can. It's always good to get outside feedback that's not your mom saying, "But you're great."
Or your mom saying, "Nobody's going to want to read this." That's something
Robyn's
that happens
here.
too. Yay, we got Robyn. Excellent. Hey, Robyn. I think she's unmuted. All right. So, yes. In Canada, basically what we're saying in Canada, you, like everywhere else, a lot of what allows you to get something made is meeting people, and it's very easy when you're just starting out to believe that there's no way into the business, or there's some very specific way into the business that you just have to kind of fill in the blanks, and all of a sudden your movie is made. And neither of those things are true. It's sort of somewhere in the middle. I was given, I can't remember, it might have been you actually, Susan, somebody gave me the best advice I ever heard when I was at one of these Female Live film festivals, and they said, "Hey, Robyn."
Hello.
What they've said to me basically was, if you want to make a movie, then the best way to actually get yourself started and to get it done is to go to these things where the people are who can make movies, ask questions, ask intelligent questions, get yourself noticed, and talk to them afterwards. And that's how you make the connections that you need to interest somebody in hearing your, what they call an elevator pitch, which is basically you telling them about your story so quickly that it could actually be done between floors in an elevator. You may have heard that expression, you may even know what it means, but there's nothing more true about that. And it's also true that you are probably the person who is least able to succinctly break down what your story is about and tell somebody. So you need to talk to people who've read your script. You need to get people to weigh in on what your story is about so that you can actually give the details quickly when you do meet people. I'm just going to get Robyn to talk a little bit about her experience in her past and what she's done and how we got working together and what we're doing.
Okay, thanks. And I'm so sorry to be late. Just some technical issues. Apologies, everyone. I got into producing, which I'm now mostly doing, but I had started out as an actor and mostly in theater, did a lot of theater work, and then kind of made the transition into film and found that not only did I enjoy acting for film, I just became obsessed with the entire process of filmmaking and everything that was going on behind the camera as well. So started out really small, just producing short films with people that I knew. Sometimes it was with fellow actors and we would just get together and make something. And that led me to a job where I worked as a producer in an animation studio in England for a year. So that was a very different kind of producing because it was all commercial work and clients would come to us with a budget and we had to do what they wanted within that budget. So that was really different from what I had been used to. And then I came back and decided I wanted to start getting into feature film production. I actually met Jen at a TIFF party, and I came on and caught the end of her talking about elevator pitches. That is pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
We were standing in line, waiting to get into this party, and we just were next to each other, started chatting, total strangers. Talked about things we were working on, and she kind of said, yeah, I've got like a few scripts, but she has lots of scripts. She's very creative and has a million amazing ideas.
Thank you.
And said, I'm kind of looking for like somebody that is looking to make their first feature as well. And, you know, I'd like to work with another woman. And I was just like, that's me. Like, let's talk. So this all happened in line at a party. We exchanged contact information. Started chatting. It's been a few years now. Like this all happened a few years ago. We just always kept in touch. The script went through some changes, or she'd be busy with something or I'd be busy with something. And it just kind of was always there. We were always working on it somehow. And yeah, we just decided to have faith in each other and accept that it was a first time for both of us. And I think that's really important in filmmaking, is being really transparent with your team. I know a lot of people believe in the fake it till you make it approach. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that either, but also knowing where your own limits are is really important, because you're just doing disservice to the project otherwise. So we were honest with each other that it was our first time. Susan and George were on board. Again, I was honest with them. It's my first time. So they've been extremely helpful. Having a really good team, having a good executive producer, other members of your team that can come together has made this a very rewarding experience so far. Even though we haven't shot the film yet, we're working on financing. I feel like I've already learned so much by working with a really talented and experienced group of people. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, Jen.
For sure, yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And we've got a really great director on board too, Winifred Jong, who just won another major award in Canada for directing. Going back to what Susan said, it probably doesn't hurt that she ticks boxes too. But it's great that we're going to be able to actually help Chinese Canadian director get her first feature. She's been directing television for a while, and she's got an award-winning web series of her own out called Tokens, which is hilarious. You've got to check it out. The whole thing's online. Tokens. I can't remember if it's Tokens or Tokens on Call.
Tokens on Call maybe is the YouTube.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
It's basically a series about background agency, backgrounds like extras on so like people who go on film but they don't actually speak, they're just there to fill out the characters. So it's about an extras agency that specializes in marginalized performers. So if you're on set and you need a Black person, then you just call up this agency and they send a Black person over. And because they just it's quite hilarious, actually. It's like it shows up a lot of the hypocrisy and the hilarity and in the way that people think about diverse casting, about trying to be inclusive, but also kind of putting people in the spotlight because you're being inclusive. As a woman in the arts, there's nothing that's kind of more annoying to me than having the big question always be, what's it like being a woman writer? Because, then you don't get to talk about being a writer. You have to talk about being a woman writer first. But at the same time, that is an important discussion to have, because there aren't enough of us. There aren't enough trans people in the business. There aren't enough Black people in the business. There aren't enough everything besides. I'm very sorry to the white men who are in the panel, because or in the room, because we love you and we just want to work with you, or or to share our experiences with you, and you can share your experiences with us, and we can get it all up on the beautiful big screen. Okay, so I want to talk a little more, just to get Robyn and Susan talking a bit more about the process of actually going from a script to getting it up on the screen, which of course we're just in the process of, and we do hope you will follow. We will follow our odyssey as we try to get Undead Redhead actualized as a film. It's been a very different process from how I thought it would be already. And I think especially when you're just going into a business, whether you're trying to publish your first book, whether you're, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the arts. There's always kind of the myth of discovery, of somebody coming up to you in a coffee shop and saying, "Oh my God, you're writing a feature film? I have a ton of money. I would like to make your film." And a lot of times you really don't know how to get your film made besides waiting for that person to come up to you. Robyn will probably tell you, as a working actor, it's a lot different from whoever the starlet is who gets seen by a producer in a coffee shop and told that she should be on film, and and then all of a sudden she's got a huge career without having to work for it. So Robyn, would you mind speaking to that for a minute? Like, just a very bare outline of what it is to be a working actor. Like, how do you actually get a career going in acting? Because I think it's a good analogy.
Definitely. And I have taken a bit of a break. I mean, I started out kind of like as a child actor, because I was always in theater. Nothing professional, just like community theater, amateur theater. I started doing that when I was really young, and just continued with it all through my teenage years. I studied theater in university. I went to York, and loved it so much that when I graduated, I was like, I'm not done with this. And then I went to U of T and did my master's in performance at U of T. And it was not until after that, so I was like in my early 20s, that I actually started making the switch to film. So up until that point in my life, I had really only done theater. And when you're on that side, you have this one perspective of what it's like. And I had only done a bit of film, because like I said, as soon as I started doing it, my attention kind of shifted to producing. But as an actor in film, everything is already put together when you get there. So you just show up on set, and you might do some rehearsals, and you might be there for a day. It might be long. There's a lot of waiting. You're sitting.
You might get a fitting.
Yeah, like it's just, you get there, and all these people, this whole team is already put together and waiting for you to come and give your performance. Whereas with producing, when I started doing that, it's just completely the opposite. You start with a script. You start with pretty much nothing, and then it's up to you to put all these things together. And sometimes the actors become a major piece of the puzzle early on. Sometimes it's a lot later. But that's one of the biggest things I noticed going into producing, is that I was so used to showing up when everything was done, and now it's up to me to get everything done. But it has been a really interesting journey. And actually, ever since I started producing film, I haven't been in any. I actually went back to theater. So in the last couple of years, I've done a few plays. And on the film side, just kind of been more involved in producing, not so much acting.
I've got a question from Heather. She would like to know how long the process, from the first idea to the first screening, how long is the process for Undead Redhead, this particular project been? So 2012 was when I got the idea. And during the first part of 2012, I worked with an actress to workshop some ideas for the character. I wrote my first 12 episodes of the web series. Shot a short film version of it. 2014 is when the book came out. And then between 2014 and 2017, I think I did about 100 different fantasy and science fiction and horror conventions, publicizing the book, getting people to read it, getting published in various ways, doing giveaways, just trying to raise the profile of the idea so that I could have a fan base before I even started. And we've been working pretty hardcore, I would say, since last summer. Is that right? So another, I mean, I would say we've probably done 30 drafts of the script altogether. And what that really is, I think the best analogy for what a screenplay is always that it's like a blueprint. So you make a lot of drafts of it, you want to make all your corrections that you can on the actual blueprint itself, because when you get onto the building site, so to speak, there's going to be a lot of unexpected things that happen that you're not sure about. You're going to want to be checking the price of your materials. You want to bring in your contractors and get quotes from them. You want to check with the, sorry, I'm really pushing the analogy here, but I love it. You also want to make sure that everything is up to code. So you want to make sure that you can actually make your film for the price that somebody is willing to fund it. And they're willing to fund it for that money because they believe that they can make their money back plus more. And that's always something that strikes me with people who write scripts. You kind of always have to keep in the back of your mind, I can only get this made if somebody can make a profit funding it. And that's where we're at right now. So Hugh asks, where will it be screened? And what revenue sources we anticipate. This is interesting. Susan, would you be able to talk a little bit about concept that I did not understand before I started doing this is first money. So the idea that the first funder to put in money, that's the hardest one to get. I think it's like getting an initial investor in your business. Nobody wants to be the first one to come in, but once the first person is in, you can start getting the ball rolling with the money, and then you can attach a
right. It all depends on the team. You know, it's hard for first time teams, you know, but if you can get you know, a name, an actor who's interested in participating, or somebody like George who will mentor and all that good stuff. But where this film will screen and how we find the money, where this film is going to get monetized, was that his question?
Yeah.
Okay. So each film has a different life. Some go straight to, you know, VOD. So there's video on demand, there's subscription video on demand, there's digital platforms, you know, Xbox, Google, all the places that you might rent things now. So with all these different platforms, you try to play it out that you get somebody to give you money for an exclusive. So for the first window, if the film isn't a theatrical film or it isn't a festival film, you know, those are separate issues. But if a film, because you don't really get to monetize films then. I mean, it's lucky films who monetize theatrically. But what that can do is, if you have a theatrical run, you can then sell it at a higher price for the audience because it's considered a theatrical. So your first one out there will be, you know, on Crave or something for $24.99 because it's a theatrical. And then your price point can come down from there. If you go straight to VOD, you're probably selling your movie at $6.99, you know, or if there's no theatrical because of COVID, it also then gets to go up for 24, like the, you know, the A-list studios and things. So there's different ways to monetize it. Then you have Air Canada sales or airline sales. There's hotel sales. There's library sales. There's all kinds of different ways to get your money. But mostly it's shaking the tree and making sure that each window is covered. So your first window is an exclusive. You get a higher amount of money for that. They have it for 60 days or 120 days, and then it goes to, you know, a streaming platform, Netflix or Shudder or whatever, unless Netflix or Shudder want to pay you an obscene amount of money to have it for 5 years. And you know, so it's not black and white, but there are ways to monetize films.
So just talking about our experience, I guess, to date, and other experiences you've had, getting the first money, getting money to come in so that you can start financing the film, so that you can start making the film, so that you eventually can get to the point where you monetize the film. Could you talk a little bit about that? Maybe talk about sales regions and about minimum guarantee, because I didn't know about what a minimum guarantee was.
So that's like 3 completely different things.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So, okay, first money in, I mean, sometimes people, you know, you submit your stuff to, say, Whistler Film Festival, and they, you know, they're really awesome, and they have lots of prize money to give to people who are trying to do things. I have to move again because now they're doing work out front. Sorry, everybody. So there's like the sponsorship or the prizes or these kind of things that really look into. It's like going to college for the first time and looking for your grants and your scholarships, that they're out there. And they can be upwards of 50 grand to 100 grand, and movies can be made for that. Also, you know, production value, like White's, for instance, gives away a lot of equipment rental certificates and things like that. So I'm talking about independent films under $1 million, under 500,000, right? These are the ways, a good way to get started.
It's every echelon, like every time you bump the budget up, you have different benefits. And
so what budgets are we looking at right now? Like what are we talking about right now?
Well, I guess maybe we'll just talk about the level that Undead Redhead is at, and if you could, if you felt like contrasting that with what like a Hollywood blockbuster would do comparably.
Okay.
Although that's not relevant to what we're doing, and it's such a different thing.
It is, but there's always, there is always the film, The Paranormal Activity or the Blair Witch Project that, hits it out of the park, and everybody says, I'm going to be the next whatever. Yeah. And you never know what that.
Let's make a whole bunch of Little Miss Sunshines. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So did I answer the first part?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the second question was one other place, you can also find producers who are looking for a place to put their money. A lot of people, dentists or whomever, find the film business super sexy. And for an executive producer credit, they'll give you $100,000 because they have it to hide or to spend or whatever. So there's always angel investors too, if you can figure that out and present yourself as a business so that they understand it. But they do, they do like that sometimes. And then what else? You asked me 3 things.
Oh no, yeah, just to contrast it with what a huge film would do to get
right. So I mean, when you're looking at like Blumhouse has a great model. Their films are anywhere. They're just their regular horror films, not the ones with the huge stars or anything. But their films are around $5 million, and they gross so much, but they get a key star, they have a good story, and they have good production value. Blumhouse is one of the few studios anymore that have branding, that have an audience that will go just simply because it's a Blumhouse
Sorry to crowd you.
Oh, your audio is weird for a second. Susan, I think your audio just.
Where's the plug? Right here.
Oh,
yeah. I see it. Oh, right here. Yeah, slow. Oh, perfect. Yeah.
all right. Is
Line up
somebody?
your end and just take it off.
Hang on a
You
second,
should wait
Susan.
though. Yeah. Yeah. I could. The reg. Open it with the reg. Nice. Were you just driving a car? Yeah, I just drove a ticket.
Okay, so is anyone else hearing some other audio stream coming?
I am, but I checked and everyone's microphone is off.
Yeah, I noticed that too. So I'm gonna mute the three of us one at a time and find out where that's coming from. Hang on.
In here, pull it up to the top, close it.
I think
it might be.
I think it's Susan's.
That's strange because it sounded like a conversation in a car or something.
That was really funny. Oops. Let's see. Yeah, it sounded like there was actually. I think Susan popped off, so she's going to try to come back in. Yeah, it was funny. I guess we forget that that there's always a lot of people in the airwaves. That was cool. Okay, yeah. So that was nobody's wearing their tinfoil hats, so I'm assuming that that's what the problem was. I think Susan is back. Are you back, darling?
She just needs to unmute, it looks like.
Oh, I'm good now.
There we go.
Yay, hey.
Hey, sorry guys, I don't know what happened there.
Somebody doesn't want us to make movies. It's a conspiracy, and that's what I'm sticking with. So one of the characters in Undead Redhead is an inveterate conspiracy theorist, and I just like to go down that rabbit hole as often as I possibly can, just to warn you guys. So when we get into really the heat of production, and I'm going, it's CSIS is on our track. Yeah, for those who aren't Canadians, that's our version of the FBI, but it's kind of like, guys who wear biker jackets, but they're not actually in a gang. They're like baby bikers.
They're in a club.
Yeah. Okay. So we got another question from Hugh. He's calling this the delicate follow-up question, and wants to know how we are all still managing not to starve while we're in this process, in this part of the process. Like, how do we get paid while making the film? Robyn, would you like to talk about that?
I mean, yes, I know that for me personally, because it's my first feature, I don't have enough of a track record to necessarily be doing only this. So I, at the moment, am also a full-time teacher. I teach grades 7 and 8.
En français.
Very busy. However, it gives me time, like at Christmas and March break and through the summers, to really focus on filmmaking. And it was something that I started to do just to get a paycheck, because my initial plan was like, I'll just supply teach. Like I'll maybe teach 2 or 3 days a week just to, feed myself, and then spend the rest of the time on film. And I won't bore you with the details, but long story short, I had to sponsor my husband to immigrate to Canada. So I needed to take it on full time for the paperwork. And I'm moving towards hopefully getting away from that full-time teaching gig soon, as some of these projects start back up again. A few of my other producer friends, one of my best friends, she's also a producer, and she just does some side gig waitressing. Again, not very often, maybe like twice a week, just to have a bit of money while she's working on her projects. But the goal would be that eventually you make a few films, and then you're able to, with your revenue, pay yourself while you're working on your next one. So, knock on wood, we make Undead Redhead, some revenue comes in, that can be money that we use to pay ourselves while we're developing our next feature. So a lot of producers do work in that way, that they're living off their revenue from their last project while they're developing their next one. So that's like the ideal situation. But when you're just starting out, yeah, a lot of people I know have Joe jobs and other things that they're doing to keep themselves afloat. So that's my own personal experience. I don't know if Jen or Susan, you've had a different.
You can't tell by looking at me, but starving is always my option. That's actually my preferred way.
I find young producers, a lot of them find their way to be on set as much as possible. So whether they start line producing just to get more familiar, or they AD, or they do something on set when it's not COVID, just to familiarize themselves with the rest of the players, the rest of the team.
Yeah, excellent.
I'm so thrilled that Jill Stein stuck around, and she actually had her first movie made into, or first novel made into a movie in Canada 20 years ago. Would love to have you talk. So let me just find you so I can unmute you. Please talk about your experiences.
Actually, the movie was made 20 years later, which is even less likely when you get down to it. But I wrote it in, I guess it came out in '69. And at the time, one of the first science fiction bookstores was The Change of Hobbit, owned by Sherry Gottlieb. And it turned out that her husband, David, had come from a family of filmmakers and had made a few little things. And he wanted to make a movie of this. And over the next 20 years, he made several movies, a bunch of documentaries, and heaven knows what else. But he wouldn't let go. And when they made the movie, finally, it was like in Canada for $1,600,000. Starred Saul Rubinek, who people may know from Warehouse 13 and other movies, and Karen Duffy, who immediately afterward became ill, I hope not because of the movie, and was unable to work for a long time, but she literally played it the way I thought it ought to have been played the whole time. And I think Chris Makepeace was in it too. And but the story in the middle, is his dogged not giving up. We had a handshake deal. Every once in a while, he would sign something with somebody, and I would start getting option money. So by the time we even got to filmmaking, the option money must have earned me 6 times what I got from the book over a long period of time. So it wasn't like it would have sustained me or fed me, but it was nice to get. And, and I never really thought it would ever get made. So I wasn't particularly worried about it because it was pretty stream of consciousness. And my plot was that a character having had a forcible change from their body into an older person's body for plot reasons, spends their time looking for that body and finally finds it, only to find that it was supposed to have been given to a scientist or some great person who would know something great with it. And he finds that person, now she finds that person at an orgy, having a great time instead of doing anything useful with the second part of their lives, and asks them why. And the person said, well, I had a body like this when I was a kid. I'm probably a scientist. And I don't know why I went for this irony, but that, however, had nothing to do with the movie as made. In the course of it being made, it included such plots as betting for bodies. At one producer, one big production company or small one, wanted to do it that way. Another one had another plot line. Finally, when we got to the end, it has something to do with a revolution against rich government run by rich corporate people who want to use this new technique for transplanting brains into bodies so they can make themselves pretty much immortal on the backs of people who get arrested or people who need money or whatever. And there's a big shoot 'em up at the end, and the doctor who does the operation is Saul Rubinek, and a really sweet guy. And they once it got in the hands of Blue Rider Pictures, who made a number of movies, they started nickel and diming it at various places, and they gathered money from this country and that country and the other countries, and they got some theatrical stuff. I mean, we're all talking like, you know, $50,000, $100,000 at a time. They got a couple of places in Europe and gosh knows where else. They showed it in actual theaters. It premiered here on HBO. It went into VHS almost immediately and has never been released in this country on DVD. So I suspect there's some rights mix-up. And the producer, who was Canadian, had the whole deal set up to get a certain amount of the money at the end because his sister was on the Canadian Film Board. But in order to get that money, almost all the film had to be shown as having a Canadian origin. And alas, when he turned in the papers, he forgot to take out the original contract and American script that the person, David Gottlieb, had shown him and they had worked from. And so when they saw that at the Canadian Film Board, they couldn't give him the money. There was too much of an American participation. If he just left that out, somehow slipped up. And so I don't know how he ended up, but clearly not in the best financial position after it was over. And so here it was called Synapse, released in 1995, not to confuse it with any other movies called Synapse, of which there are several. And over in England and Europe, they called it Memory Run. Don't ask me why. Neither of them had anything to do with the movie or the plot.
What was the book called? Did the book have a different
title? The book was called
title?
Season of the Witch. It's not in print at the moment. It's been in print from 3 different publishers. I'm about to bring it out again, probably in the next couple of months.
Wow.
And because it's on a list of, 100 best and 25 best must-read transgender novels, I guess.
Nice.
At least I've seen it there. And really, when it was over, first of all, I'm very different than other writers. I said, when they released this, I got $25,000 for the screen for my participation at the end on top of all of the option money. And I said, for $25,000, I'm not going to be an idiot and put this movie down. You know, I know people have gotten, $100,000 and $500,000 who complain about the movie. My gosh, they gave you a staggering amount of money. Why would you be complaining even if you didn't like the movie? Just keep it to yourself. And the producer asked me when it was all over what I thought about it when I saw it at the first screening, and I said, well, at least it's not a movie about a bunch of people trapped in a spaceship underwater at the Earth's core or someplace else with an unkillable monster going through, knocking them off one at a time, which was the big theme then because of Alien. And I said, and in the last shot, you kept my original theme untouched and unbroken, so I'm good with you guys. And that was
amazing. See, that's and I would say that that's probably more of a typical kind of process for getting a film made rather than, I mean, it seems like it's a straightforward thing, but that sounds pretty much exactly like what I would expect. That sounds exhausting. Congratulations for weathering it and getting through to the end of it. And I think that passion, we had one more question just from Heather again about, she asks, now that we're along in the process, what would we have done differently? There's so many things I would have done differently, but I didn't know those things until I went through the process. Yeah. And I know that there's going to be things I'll do differently the next time I make a film. One of them is just keeping the pressure on. It's just keeping the momentum going as much as possible and trying to take advantage of when there is an interest in it. Like we did a giveaway through Fangoria, so I wish I'd followed up with that immediately, and asked to get some. Spock just joined our room. So just at that point use that particular bit of publicity to get some more publicity, and a lot of it is just definitely learning as you go along. I posted the link to the Undead Redhead novel on Amazon. I'm also going to post the link to the so-called viral video. So that's in the story of Undead Redhead, it's about a sweet little redheaded vegan girl in Toronto who dies in a terrible, tragic wedding bouquet toss accident and wakes up as a zombie, but finds out that she's still vegan. And it's sort of it's a story about trying to get people to accept you for who you are, and also to realize that sometimes the people that are the closest to you are the ones who are hurting you the most. We're just about the time we've got to wrap up. I see that Ira has popped into the room. So if anybody would like to stick around and just chat a little bit before the next session, who am I handing over the, Ira, if you feel like unmuting?
Either Steve Van Stock or, whoops, hold on, who else? Or Dan Kimmel.
Okay. So
a friend just texted me that you can see Synapse on YouTube now. So maybe I'll go watch it. I haven't seen it in years.
That's great. Anyone who wants to unmute and ask a question, we can have a little bit of a free-for-all until our next host gets here. Thank you all so much for coming. Oh, sorry, Ira, no free-for-all?
No problem. Oh, no. Free-for-all away. I just wanted to say that that Undead Redhead was hilarious. I really enjoyed it, and so it's very much worth finding. And hopefully seeing the movie when it comes out.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Robyn and Susan and George and I and Winnie will keep pushing towards that goal.
Yes.
Thank you to my co-participants on the panel. Thank you so much to Jean for weighing in. That was absolutely wonderful to have you here. Thank you to everyone who came. I see Jeannie there. I see lots of people I know. Hello. So if there's anybody else, otherwise, I will be reading from Undead Redhead tomorrow at 1 p.m., I think. Yes, I'm pretty sure. And I'm also going to be reading from a supernatural horror book as well. It's kind of an urban horror fantasy. See, this is the kind of thing that drives marketers crazy when you decide to cross genres and they don't know how to market you, and then they have a conniption and try to get you to do something different so that they have an easier time marketing you.
Did you talk about that at all, Jen? Like
I did not.
Because Jen has basically created her own genre with this, which
You gonna tell them what it's called?
Yes, we've named it a Zom rom-com. That's what we're going with. And while it's kind of its new own thing, it gets people's attention. It's something that people haven't really seen before. So while it doesn't necessarily fit into a prescribed box, it's been created as its own thing, and that is what's interesting people as well.
And it's always nice to load up your protagonists with as many challenges even before the story gets going. So vegan, zombie, and redhead were my 3 big challenges for her to deal with. Yes. Any other questions? Somebody on music? I don't know if I can actually leave the panel and have somebody else just pick it up when I think I'm supposed to stick around and just make sure I hand over. Yeah.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Yes.
Go and reward yourself with a nice bottle of wine, a glass of wine. Yeah.
It's National Rosé Day.
What?
It really is.
We must celebrate. I also like National Cake Day. I like National Cake Day.
I don't know when that is.
Anytime you want it to be. I think it's a sliding date. Thanks, Susan. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. This has been great. Thank you, Jen. None of this would have been possible without Jen and her creativity. So I highly encourage everyone to read the book. I do. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Thank you, Robyn.
Thank you
so much.
Have a good Saturday night, everyone.
I'll see way too much of you in the future.
Oh, yes.
Somebody's supposed to come in and take over and hosting.
Yes. Is it Jay?
Usually it's Ira or it's I don't know who Jay is, but usually it's Ira, and Steve was going to do some since Steve had his horrible double computer failures on
what happened
yesterday. He had 2 computers, both of them went down yesterday.
Oh, that's crazy.
At least that's what I was told. And but hopefully someone will show up.
I'm just
And
gonna check out who's. What is the next session in this room?
I think Undead Redheads is the greatest titles of all time, by the way. I mean, I really do.
Thank you.